Welcome to 8.11's Math Moment. Today in 6th grade, students learn to collect, display, and interpret data. Now one of the things that we're going to be working again with today is a dot plot, and we are going to be looking at this dot plot, which is in referring to the minutes it took to complete some math homework. So when we look at this data, some of the things we're going to look at are the same things we talked about in 8.10, the cluster, peak, gap, and outlier. So the very first thing I'm going to go ahead and look at is I'm going to look and see if there is a cluster. Remember, cluster is a group of data. So right here I see that I've got my cluster. Now looking for a peak, remember the peak is going to be the highest amount of data, so I can see that 5 is going to be my peak. My gap. Now there's an obvious gap right here from 9 to 14, so really around 10 to 13. There's an obvious gap here. Now a lot of students kind of wonder, is this a gap between 7 and 9? This is a very small gap. Remember, gap is where there is no data, and there is no data for 8, and there's also no data between 3 and 5, so there's a gap right here as well. And then looking for any outlier data. Remember, outlier is extreme data that's really off of the rest of the group. In this case, our outlier would be 14. All right, it says find the mean of the data. Find the median of the data. To do this, what I need to do is I need to go ahead and make a list of my information. So I've got 3, I've got 5, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5s. So there's 3, 4, and 5. I've got 1, 2, 6s. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 7s. I've got 1 9, and I have 1 14. Now remember, to find the median is when you put the numbers in order from smallest to largest, and you're looking for that center value. I'm going to go ahead and do the rainbow method, where you draw lines from the smallest to the largest and keep working your way towards the center. Now it's really important when you're doing this method to make sure that your student is being careful with their lines, to make sure that they're accurately lining up with data that is matching the one that they should be connected to. 5 to 7, and then I've got 2 numbers in the center, which is a 6 and a 6. So I know that when there's 2 numbers in the center, I can add them together. 6 plus 6 is 12, and I need to divide by the 2 numbers that I have, which is going to give me 6. Now some students might be able to automatically tell that 6 and 6, the median is obviously going to be 6. Now, this last part of the question says, thinking about how we'd interpret this data, it says, one student forgot to record their data. What would be a good estimate for the time it took this student? So one student forgot to put their information into this table, and we need to think about where this information should go in our dot plot. So when we're looking at this, an obvious spot that we probably would think where we'd want to put the student data if we were going to make sure that there would be a good estimate for them would probably be within this cluster. So we might think that they might have a 5, 6, or 7. So 5, 6, or 7 would probably be a good guess because most of our data falls within that range. If you have any questions about today's math lesson, make sure you see your math teacher.